if he did this, the question is, what would we do? The people rejoiced Sunday because he didn't admit to anything. They didn't want him to.
But that's what's interesting. He didn't admit to anything. There is a possibility. He said, I am not a perfect man. But he did not come up to the pulpit and say, I am not gay. He didn't say those words. He didn't say these fears, these concerns that are coming forward, this talk about me specifically. It was vague.
Who is a herrick and who is holy? The answer, of course, depends on who you ask. Bishop Carlton Pearson was one of the country's most prominent black televangelists in the 1980s, but then he was deemed a herrick after he embraced a concept called universal salvation. My gay friends, and I have several over the years, I got tired of sending them to hell. It messed with my theology and my heart. And so I started preaching the gospel of inclusion, saying that Hindus, Muslims, Jews, everybody has access to the grace of the God that we preach. Now that is a direct quote from Bishop Carlton Pearson, and what you have just heard is a clip from an interview on CNN with Carlton Pearson concerning Bishop Eddie Long. Here's more from that interview.
I'll start with, why did you change your philosophy? Why did you go out on a limb and say gays are accepted in heaven? Something that the black church disagrees with.
Well, not only the black church, the church disagrees with it. And my gay friends, and I have several over the years, were some of the most sensitive, loving, creative, ingenious, generous people. Some are members of my family. I got tired of sending them to hell. It was the hell issue. They're going through it now, but these brilliant human beings spending eternity in a customized torture chamber, it messed with my theology and my heart. And so I started preaching the gospel of inclusion, saying that Hindus, Muslims, Jews, everybody has access to the grace of the God we preach. And that not only a few Christians were going to heaven, and that's what got me in trouble with church. The devotion to the devil and hell is stronger, or as strong as anybody's devotion to Jesus in many of the Christian circles.
Now, Pearson was saying that he no longer believed in hell and that almost everyone would go to heaven. And that stance cost Bishop Pearson many members of his church in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the support of many fellow Pentecostals. Now, Carlton passed away from cancer at the age of 70. Now, to talk about his life, Will Bogle from New York has joined NPR. And he's asked what drew him to Bishop Carlton Pearson's teachings. And he said he was mostly a fan of his music. And he grew up Pentecostal, apostolic, fundamentalist. Interesting labels, okay. He said Carlton's message then was very traditional, the teachings he formally embraced. So he became a fan and a follower of his early work in his teens. They got some typos here, so y'all bear with me. He says that he used to play music for his great-grandmother, and she was a convalescent. And she had a stroke, and she was very, very, very religious. And those songs that he sang really helped them get closer together in those years of her life. So he mostly learned about Carlton and really started to follow him before his shift in consciousness. So when they asked him about what did Carlton tell him about his shift, he said, well, it's been very well documented. His rethinking, as he called it, of his faith, with the type of person he was very loving, very kind, very generous. And the way I interpreted some of his messaging was that God was not a worse person than our best people are. And if our best people are kind and loving, then God has to be even more, since he was the creator. Not that God couldn't be vengeful, but he was more loving than he was, I guess. So he was asked, what do you think that was about? Why was the price so high? Why were the people so attracted to this idea that God condemns people to eternal damnation? Outside of it saying so in books? So he says, they say the first person through the glass is always the bloodiest. That's I'm gonna tuck that one away for later. So I think Bishop Pearson rocked the boat a little too hard, and some of the responses he got may have been knee-jerk reactions. Some people just feeling like they needed to double down to protect their own. Well, Bishop Eddie Long went hardcore against gays, right? Did he? Oh yeah, he did. Okay. So he goes on to say, and some people really felt like they needed to defend the faith. And I think to not allow their institution to be dismantled from externally or internally. And by the institution, I mean fundamentalism, the church, their churches, and their way of life.
We're going to talk more about that in a minute, okay, and why this is such a taboo subject within the black church specifically. But Eddie Long, you're very good friends. He sought your advice. He sought your counsel a number of times. Did he reach out to you when all of this started happening?
I reached out to him. A couple of years ago, he embraced me. When he knew that I had been sort of castigated from the church, he walked up to me in Vegas at the Trumpet Awards and just embraced me and said, Bishop, we didn't do you right.
Wow.
Now, that was a very powerful expression from him because no one else had said it that way.
Interesting for someone who's been very vocal about homosexuality and that it's not accepted, and he's against gay marriage. So he came to you and said, we didn't do you right. When you came out and said, I accept lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender.
Absolutely.
Now, Carlton Pearson also got involved in politics, and he advised George W. Bush, who ran for mayor of Tulsa. Now, when Mr. Will Bogle, Carlton Pearson's ex-assistant, is asked, how did his evolving theological beliefs shape his political views, if at all, Bogle says, I think he also did some work with President Clinton as well, and he shifted theology. He had more of a tolerance for gays, and not tolerance in the fact that he now can stomach them, but more in terms of what he believed to be inalienable rights for all mankind. So politically, I feel like he started trying to help all mankind find their place in society. And I think the big group that might have been most disenfranchised, at least in that point, would be the gays and lesbians or the LGBTQ community.
So I think in his heart, he does accept them. I think in all of our hearts, it's not kosher, if I could use that terminology, to accept them, because people like Ted Haggard, Ted couldn't have gotten where Ted got. He couldn't have gone where he went in our Christian evangelical fundamentalist movement if he was gay. So he went as far as he went, and then they said, oh no, you don't qualify any longer. He's still Ted. I know him. I think the kid was on my college wing at ORU. It grieves me that we treat people the way we do once we find out that they stop impersonating who they aren't, and the imposters are falling away. What would we do if Eddie Long really was involved in these relationships? And then what do? Do we throw him away? Do we castigate him? He's a prince of a preacher. He's really a prince of a person. He's a generous spirit. He's an incredible worker in the city. Infidelity, adultery, that's a whole other subject. But if he did this, the question is, what would we do? The people rejoiced Sunday because he didn't admit to anything.
Okay. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that I really can't do commentary on this subject. The name of the series is Soul Search. Okay, because and that would be what I'm doing here. There's a lot being revealed about a lot of people in positions of power. And as we can see, people in high power in the churches. And if I'm correct, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, being a bishop is the highest position in most religions. There's connections here. So back to the NPR interview. The interviewer asks Mr. Boggle, what would he like for people to know about Bishop Carlton Pearson, the man? Now, he spoke about him coming to Georgia when he got married. He said he was a great friend, he was a great father, and he tried to be a great husband. Okay? Um, he's a bishop now, okay? Trying to be a great husband. What does that mean? I wish she would have asked him to maybe elaborate on that a little bit, because if you got a bishop and you say he was a great friend, he was a great father, and I mean, that's the outside looking in my opinion. To say someone is a great father, it can seem like that to you. But how do you know unless you're in the household and he's your father? I mean, I don't know. But he said he tried to be a great husband. So that stuck out to me. He said that, when he got married, he married him and his wife. And he said he lost his brother to an overdose and he was only 36 years old. And Carlton showed up at the funeral at his own expense because he wanted to be there with me in New York. And that is the measure of the man that he's respectful of. But if that's his bishop, his pastor, isn't that like kind of their role? I mean, again, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but they get pretty good dough, right? And they have like duties that they carry out. So I know he wasn't conducting the funeral, so I mean, I don't know if he decided to show up. Is that much different than another family friend deciding to show up? Or is it any different than him performing his duties as a bishop? Listen, again, the name of my series is called Soul Searching, Soul Search. I mean, we just all here on this planet, and we trying to seek some understanding. We trying to seek some answers while we here. And we just been going through a whirlwind of finding out that a lot of things aren't quite what we were told and taught and what we thought. You know what I'm saying?
They didn't want him to.
But that's what's interesting. He didn't admit to anything. There is a possibility. He said, I am not a perfect man, but he did not come up to the pulpit and say, I am not gay. He didn't say those words. He didn't say these fears, these concerns that are coming forward, this talk about me specifically. It was vague. So what, I mean, and of course, these are all allegations at this point.
Now, I do remember Eddie Long's story very vividly. And for those of you who don't know, I live in Atlanta. So, yeah, I remember this. And I remember how he didn't even, but I'm going to do he's going to be a whole different video in itself. And we're going to go over the Eddie Long situation. But he didn't even admit that he was sick from cancer. And then he came out and said he was healed. So y'all know that man passed away and he never outright denied his allegations. He would say catchphrases like "I'm not a perfect man" and stuff like that. And I have not listened to T.D. Jakes' sermon, I guess somewhat addressing the situation. I've seen a couple of clips, but I haven't really watched them. I just watched them for like a couple of seconds because I don't like to look at clips. I like to go to the source And I didn't want to get into the TD Jakes thing. I mean, I don't follow none of these dudes, and respect to all who did or do, but I just don't. It's just, I just don't. But I just see this is happening a lot, and I see that these people have connections. Is it uncommon for them to, I don't know, congregate? Because they're all bishops, right? It's not. But I mean, look at what we're being shown about them. Now, I want to go back to Mr. Bongle's interview on NPR. And when he talked about the things that Carlton Pearson had done for him, he said, "This is the man, the measure of the man that I am respectful of." Not because everything he said I agree with. And he said, and that was one of his sticking points. He said, we can disagree without being disagreeable. And if society would find a way to disagree without being disagreeable, we would have a lot more tolerance for people that don't share our opinions and don't share our views and don't even share our positions or passions in any respect. Now, concerning these issues, when it comes to what's going on with TD Jakes, which is our most recent situation, I'm choosing to line up a playlist of people who I don't know of these guys because I don't follow them, but they seem to be of faith, and they seem to hold that platform in that faith, and they kind of, their content is based around that faith, right? And a lot of these guys are younger, and I know there's a couple of older, but it seems like there's a little drama there, so I don't know. I just want to get it from your theological aspect and not necessarily whatever beef you might have with TD Jakes or whatever like that. Because we know the old heads, they beef too, right? But I chose that route, and I haven't watched them thoroughly yet. I've only watched one so far, but I chose that route because I want to hear this discussed from people who are sticking to their faith, because these are men of faith, and this is what is making it a little complex for me, because what I'm seeing from them that's being exposed and what I'm hearing from them, and you listen to Carlton Pearson, I'm hearing contradictions. And of course, we know with Carlton Pearson, there's clear contradictions in what his word says and what he has been saying that God wants and God desires and his expectations of his faithful children. So it seems to me like these guys are taking it upon themselves to give in to something else, including their flesh, and make their own rules. And when you go back to what Mr. Boggle said, and he talked about disagreeing without being disagreeable, I can respect that. And I think that we do need more of that. It's kind of like if you don't agree with whom someone wants to vote for, or what color they like, or just any aspect in life, we are all traveling our own path, and we come from all different sources, and we have different experiences, and we have different walks, and we are just we're all on a soul search. We're all trying to figure it all out, and some of us don't even have a clear uncut stance as to what we're trying to figure out. But I think everybody has a right to, figure things out according to whatever their path may be. And if you don't agree with that, that's fine. As long as they're not imposing it upon you, then you just have to say, well, hey, I don't agree with it, but it's not me. So there's that, right? But I think that it is different when we come to the church. It seems to me like the roles have been switched, and y'all can tell me if you agree with this observation. It seems like the roles have been switched. The church used to be the most judgmental, but it seems like the church is spread out all over now, and people will go ham on you if you don't carry their same beliefs or whatnot. But it seems like the church is being more versatile and more open. And Carlton was just ahead of his time with this, in my opinion. Because we do have now a lot going on in the church that we never would have seen or heard about. Well, maybe heard about, but we definitely wouldn't have seen, or they would have admitted to, or would have been open many years ago. And even defending it, and people defending them. And when you listen to Carlton Pearson, and you listen to his stance, and he's saying that people, have a right to be accepted. This is my own interpretation of what he's saying. And they have a right to be accepted and included no matter what they believe, what they practice, and what they do. I think, as someone who grew up in the church, strict, I'm talking about strict. I grew up in a cult, y'all, but that's going in a book, okay? Went to, Christian and Catholic schools and all that. And so we had many different faiths. So I'm not just speaking not from experience, but I do recall that most religions weren't that tolerant of other religions because they felt like yours is wrong, mine is right. And it's still, people still carry that today. But it seems like we did, as a whole, wish that people could just not necessarily respect it, as far as saying, oh yeah, you might be right, you might be right. No, but just respect that that's their path. And when we did start to see, certain types of churches or religions that would say, would go out on a limb and say, hey, we're going to welcome them into the house. But it was explained that it was under with the intentions of hopefully getting them to see the quote unquote error of their ways and change and confess and give their life over and, leave these things behind that is not of what they are teaching and what they believe that we should be living, right? But it seems to me that these here pastors, bishops, or what have you, in the churches are saying, I'm cool with it all. They can be that. They can do that. And that's okay. And we can still also properly serve. I'm confused by that. I'm heavily confused by that because it seems like they're making up their own rules. And I'm just asking, do we allow that? Because a lot has changed. And we all know this. It used to be a time where nobody could say that they had any kind of desires for anything but the opposite sex. And look at where we are now. And it's being accepted. Now, when you have people out here like Little Nas X and his recent controversy about his gospel song and his Instagram post and him saying that he could use his mouth for two things, meaning he could put it on another man's genitalia and he can praise God at the same time. Technically, yes. But we've come to a point where nobody can say you can choose to do that, but you're supposed to not do that. Like, it's almost as if it's illegal to even say that anymore. I'm just so heavily confused by it all, guys.
Point. What if he does come forward, Bishop, and say, I told you I wasn't a perfect man, and I've been struggling with this issue. And he does say that he's gay. What if this story changes? How will you deal with that? Will you accept him? Will you embrace him? How would you counsel him as his friend?
Well, I would put my arms around him like he did me and say, we will do you right. The scripture says if a brother or person is overtaken or taken over by a fault, some translations say sin, you who are spiritual, not you who are critical, or you who are religious, restore. The word katartizo in Greek means to repair, to adjust. If that's his case, and he's been saying otherwise, and he's dealing with inner issues, usually the people that speak the most vociferously against something are dealing with it in their own life.
Now that came out of his mouth. That came out of his mouth. But I also noticed how he did not want to say sin. Now this video is very low, so I apologize. I have a high-powered laptop here, and I have my fan on, so you're probably going to hear some of that in the background, but this video is just very low. But he didn't want it to call it a sin. You see what I'm talking about being confused? Because there used to be a time where it was clear and uncut. And I don't expect us to be held at such high standards. Isn't that supposed to be their role? Isn't that why they are ordained, not just chosen by the church, but ordained by God Himself? Because they are supposed to be clear on what is okay and not okay according to what they are teaching. And aren't they supposed to be the ones to tell you that this isn't a direct sin against God? And then when you start saying, well, I'm not going to call it a sin. I thought a sin was a sin. Whether I steal a piece of candy or take someone's life, it's the same. If we're not doing that no more, I mean, y'all just let me know so I can kind of like try to mentally catch up with what's going on, because I'm just so lost.
One that's railing against drugs or drinking or sex or whatever, they're dealing, and it's not the issue of homosexuality, it's the issue of human sexuality. How do we deal with our sexual side, our sensual side, our spiritual side? Because they interplay, they interact. So it's wrong for, I'm not for Christian cannibalism, eating our dead or dying, destroying them the way we do so many people. He should have been able to, in fact, before this got into the media and even to the courts, I wish the young men would have come to some of the apostles around the ministry and confronted the bishop and said, let's deal with this. And then if he didn't, take it out to the...
Okay, so they didn't do that. I mean, is that what he's saying here? Because I don't necessarily recall, and I'm pretty sure by the time I get to doing Eddie Long's video for you guys, I'm gonna see if I can find whether he was confronted by others or not. But it seemed, from what I recall in the research that I have, that's years old on my old computer, he got a lot of support. And I'm talking about Eddie Long. He got a lot of support, especially from celebrities and the people of his church. Now, Carlton Pearson, he also was one to say that hell does not exist and things like that. And I'm just like, because he's the first person of the cloth that I've ever heard say something like that. I'm not, abreast of his teachings like that. But wow, I mean, what are we going by? We just don't make up our own. Well, man's been doing that since the beginning of time, but okay.
I wish we could gather around, and we will. If we find out this about that these allegations are true, those who really love the church and love Bishop will gather around him apostolically to embrace him and to let him talk to us. Who could he have spoken to if that was really his issue? What could he have said?
No, I disagree with the who could he have spoken to because I don't necessarily know the procedures, but everybody has a boss, right? Okay, first of all, why would you say that? He can't talk to God because isn't that for who y'all supposed to be able to talk to if you can't talk to nobody else? I mean, aren't y'all supposed to have the direct line to God more so than we? Like, we may not know because we're so in our flesh, right? I'm talking about just us. We're not pastors. We're not preachers. We're not what are these guys are bishops. We're not bishops, right? Not bishop from Juice. I'm talking about bishop of the church. So we may go and talk to a therapist, or we may talk to a family friend, or just a friend who really ain't the best person to give us advice, or we may choose not to talk to nobody and just wild out and make our own rules. But I thought that they were held to a higher standard, and if they don't talk to nobody else, they supposed to get on their knees and pray and have conversations with God. I thought they had that special connection to where God is guiding them through what they are doing. So this kind of says to me that you are going rogue. You are doing your own thing. You are leading yourself more so than the God leading you, because why would he say who can he talk to? How can you console us and tell us that we can always go to God if you guys aren't doing that? And I do also believe that if one person of a church, it doesn't even matter if they're of the same church as the others, but if one person is being caught up in something and they're doing wrong, isn't there some kind of program or something in some written rules, or I don't unwritten rules where some of the other pastors and bishops will get together? They don't have a bishops meeting every once in a while to say, oh, how you doing, where you at with this? I heard this and that tell me this ain't true, this ain't how we supposed to rock. Because where's your mentorship? Well, who's going to keep who in line? You should be able to, they all should have been able to come to him whether they agree with each other's religions or not. Isn't the base rule still the same on how you supposed to serve and represent? I'm just
Talked about this as well. The issue of being a black gay man, especially in the church, and a man within ministry, gospel music. There have been allegations that have come forward. There have been individuals that have come forward and said, I'm gay, and have been completely shut out of the black church because of that. Why is it so unacceptable to be a black man and to be gay and to lead a flock?
okay. Now, before he answers that question, and I have not watched this in great detail, I merely had a clip of it on my old computer, and I decided to go and look for the full interview, and I'm very glad that I did. I don't know who's doing this interview. I don't know the CNN cast like this, but let me see if they say who she is. They don't say. I'm on their YouTube page. But she is doing a great job, y'all. She's asking the right questions, in my opinion. So let's let him go.
So taboo.
Well, first of all,
It's not just biblical. I mean, there's a cultural
of
feeling
course,
here.
yeah, that's for white folks. See, y'all supposed to do all that kind of stuff. We don't do that kind of stuff. we real men. That's I said that in jest, but that's
No,
an
but that's
underlying.
interesting. That's what's going on.
Yeah, we don't do weird stuff. Now, the other hypocritical aspect of that is our churches, Kira, are filled with same-gender loving people, from the music department to the pulpits. Black music, church music, where would it be without our same-gender loving or gay musicians and singers? Not all of them are.
Okay, when he said we don't do that stuff, I was like, what is he talking about? But when he's saying what he is saying now, he's telling the truth, y'all. He's telling the truth. I have my only uncle is very gay, and well, he's bisexual, I guess. Well, he used to be. I don't know. I don't think he's bisexual no more, but he's a long time boyfriend. Did a lot of singing and piano playing. Okay, and these guys are very, 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 very gay. So we're not unfamiliar to this. So is that hypocritical? And I'm not talking about in today's time, of course. I'm talking about back then, because what he's saying is true.
That many have come to you and said, I'm gay, but I can't come
Oh,
out.
yes. Oh,
and we're
yeah.
talking very powerful people within
Yes,
the gospel
ma'am.
industry.
Yes,
I've met
ma'am.
them.
Yes, ma'am. With tears in their eyes, they were afraid. There are people who come to me and say, I embrace your gospel of inclusion, Bishop, but I can't. It's not a theological issue with me. It's a business decision. I'll lose my flock. I'll use my money. I'll lose my Parsons. I'll lose myself. I can't.
Well, we know that that's not true anymore. Doggone it. This had to be, and this is interesting because this was posted on September 28th of 2010. This is 2023. That's not that long ago. So it just in 2010, it was a situation in our society where people will tend to treat you differently if they knew you were same gender loving. But look at where we are with it now. Big difference.
Love everybody. I can't even love me, you can say. And I want to say to that group, and this is a wake-up call. Until the church, black or otherwise, confronts, not combats, confronts this issue of human sexuality and homosexuality, which is not going away. Homosexuals and homosexuality is not going away. If every gay person in our churches left, or those who have an orientation or a preference or an inclination or fantasy, if everyone left, we wouldn't have a church.
See, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting because this isn't about what I believe people should be or do, right? It's just about what we've always been told and what we've always been taught. So, my question again is, where and how did the rules change? Did these guys decide, and we see that they have involvements with the government, right? So did these guys decide as man, okay, flesh, man, that they were going to change what was supposed to be the bylaws of living for man on earth? And then so shall it be? Because I can understand, I think we all can understand that everybody deserves to be accepted and loved. But at the same time, it's kind of like when your child does something wrong and you say, well, honey, that's not right. I don't want you doing that. Okay, but you still love them as you're correcting them and teaching them what you understand that they need to learn is the right way to go about it, right? I get that a lot of people can admit to being confused in the world, but does that mean that you're supposed to just let everything go all, in any way that we so shall desire? Because I thought that the purpose of having books like Bibles and having religions and having preachers and bishops and other people with roles in the church who are supposed to be teachers, I thought the purpose of all of that is to give you some kind of code or standard of living that you're supposed to abide by. So it's kind of like saying, I know we got laws out here and, we got state laws, we got county laws, we got government laws, we even got universal laws, but we can just do what you want. And we're clearly not saying that about laws on the land, right? And there's no confusion. That's not ever going to happen. So how is it okay for it to happen when it comes to the churches?
Yeah, there are gay doctors, police officers, attorneys. Look at the whole Catholic Church.
I mean, I don't know what he about to say about the Catholic Church, but being a doctor or a lawyer is not the same thing as preaching the word. A man of the cloth, that's not the same thing. Okay, I don't know.
All this idea of celibacy, it's not even natural, but it's out. It's like the Christian church is having to confront its issues. It's platonic, plastic, superficial portrayals of an angry God.
Okay. So yeah. I don't know this guy like that. So he's shocking me. Yeah, he's shocking me. But I'm pretty sure he's been saying this for years. Okay, bear with me. He said that's not even natural. Okay, but I thought we understood that sin is now natural because I don't know what's the story. Adam, they got Eve from the rib, and she said, "Hey Adam, let's do some dirt. I want you to eat this apple." And God said, "Oh, you did wrong, and you're naked now. Look, you're naked. Did you know you was naked? Oh, now you know you're naked. So now you know sin, and now you're gonna have to fight against sin." Now, I'm not saying I believe that story, but this is a story we was told. So it became a natural thing. Cain killed Abel, right? That type of thing. You supposed to go against your flesh because the flesh wants to do these things. So if he's saying being promiscuous is, I'm sorry, not fornicating, is that the word? That's not natural. I think we kind of know that, but I thought we wasn't doing that type of natural. I thought you supposed to. That's why you supposed to stay in the word and be counseled. And I can't.
A vicious God, an eternal place where everybody's going to burn, and this God with this terrible
He going in, man.
management problem who's going to get you, and then he's going to turn you over to the devil who's going to accuse you to him. And it's fairy tale stuff.
I don't know because haven't we been living like that? I know a lot of y'all, I want to say if you're not like 30, 35 and up, y'all don't know nothing about this here. But let me tell you something. You used to fear your parents. You used to fear your grandparents. You used to fear your auntie and uncles. You used to fear your neighbors, like your friends' parents. You used to fear teachers. You used to fear the principal. I used to go to the principal's office and get my butt whooped and then go home and get a butt whooping because I got paddled at the doggone Christian school. Listen, we used to have the fear of our parents in us because if we do wrong, we're going to feel their wrath. And that would be the thing that would make us want to do right when we didn't know any better. So it sounds cruel, but it from what we experienced in life, we understood how that made sense. Because if we don't fear wrath, then we don't do stuff like what Eddie Long and so on and so forth, and just
We bought into it, and now we're having to face the fact that maybe we missed it on many of these issues.
This has definitely caught international attention, and he's a very powerful man.
Yeah, he is. And listen, I think I'm gonna go and look for some more of his sermons because I need to hear more about what he's trying to say. Because so we can just do whatever, so we not going to hell. So even suicide is not wrong. Okay, so we don't. How do we pay for our sins? How do we not do what we not supposed to do? Or it's all up. It's up and it's stuck. Like there's nothing really that we not supposed to do. We can just do what we want. I mean, where's the logic in this? I don't know.
Very powerful man of God, and he's brought up an issue that has been simmering for a very long time. And I tell you, as this story continues, because we know it's not going away, can we continue this dialogue? And
Absolutely.
I would love to talk to you more as you counsel Bishop Eddie Long, and let's talk more about this.
Let me just tell you, Bishop Eddie Long is just the tip of the iceberg. I think the universe is not judging but correcting itself. We're having to confront these issues. I love Bishop Long. I love anybody out there hurting, and I'll be here for them. And I love your tenderness in dealing with it. It's a delicate subject. I'm trying to be as discreet and tactful as I can, but it's an issue that's not going to go away. We got to deal with it. It's here for our help.
Well, I respect very much what you preach, so I look forward to talking to you more about this. Bishop, thank you.
Respect is not the same thing as agree, but she did a great job. She really did. I wish I knew her name. But this is journalism was different then, y'all. There was a such thing, called respectful journalism. And I mean, again, I have to commend her. She did a great job. And I'm going to check and see if him and her publicly dialogued anymore. And if so, I'll be back with that. But y'all, come on. just let me know what you're thinking about all of this, because I need some help. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, my head is blown right now. I mean, he's saying that the universe is correcting itself. In a way, I agree, but I don't think in the same way that he means, because a lot is being revealed. I don't know if any of you guys believe that this might be the last days, but that's kind of what we was taught, right? In the last days, all this kind of stuff is gonna, come about, and a lot of things will be revealed. And I just want to say this. According to my logic, and my logic is going to go off of mainly what I have always been taught and told, right? So according to my logic on this type of subject, it seemed to me like what he is saying is that it's pretty much normal what is being alleged, right? Of Mr. Eddie Long here, but from what I've always understood is that a man may be a married man with children, and he may have a desire to be with another man. He may have thoughts. He may even have thoughts and desires of wanting to be with younger men, which is even supposed to be you add another sin onto that. But when he is in the church and he has thoughts, he's supposed to go and take counsel, take prayer, and he's supposed to have his pastor, a bishop, or somebody to counsel him and tell him how to fight. They're going to pray together, and they're going to give him some, it's kind of like going to the doctor. He's going to give him a prescription of what to do, say 5 Hail Marys, that type of thing. And they're going to help fight it together. He's going to cast them demons out of them, all that different type of stuff. However, each religion handles it, but they're supposed to help guide you, to tell you that this is wrong. They're going to show you the verses. They're going to read you the verses. They're going to say, God is not for this. It's not okay. You have a family. You and your wife are agreed to monogamy, and God told you to be with your wife and forsake all others, blah blah blah. And you go and you be strong, and you do what you need to do. If you gotta fast, if you gotta have some kind of, I've seen it all, y'all. Come to church all throughout the week and be on your knees at the altar, take this communion, like get baptized again, re-give your life to Christ, like you name it. Okay, some things I ain't even gonna sit up here and say, but some of y'all know, depending on what kind of walks you done been through, right? And just things you done seen. And some stuff we didn't have privy to because we was children, but they would do some extreme things, but keep that pressure, like keep the foot on the devil's neck to keep themselves from going that route. It would be practically unheard of for the man of the church, the man of the cloth himself, to take these routes, because he's the one chosen to be the main representative by God to know. Like, look nowadays how we got teachers out of bounds. Oh boy. Principals out of bounds. And the principals higher than the teacher. We got superintendents out of bounds. They're even higher. And they're supposed to know not to cross boundaries with children. In fact, if you're having these kind of thoughts, then you know that that's not the line of work you want to get into, because lead us not into temptation, right? But if you are a pastor, or you are these guys are bishops, man. You know that you're having these kind of thoughts. If you can't fight them, aren't you supposed to like step down or something so you can go and get yourself together, because you're no longer qualified if you're giving in to these thoughts? Like, when did it become okay and then you just turn around and say, well, the flesh is, we just keeping it real, it's just coming out, that's just what the flesh, it's not natural to be like this and that and the third. What? I'm lost. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, I'm lost. But what I am gonna do, I'm gonna let y'all deal with TD Jakes, even familiar, and I ain't even trying to get all up into it like that. I'm just gonna watch what y'all put out and see what happens. I do firmly believe that he will be now, I don't want to say fully, but almost fully exposed. And I do think that the same thing is going to happen with him that happened with Eddie Long. I do believe that he is going to maintain his support system. And I do believe that he is going to take a different turn just from little excerpts I've heard from his response, and then watching some of his other clips of his preachings and his mannerisms and things like that, I don't know his past life, but I'm going to go on a limb and say he ain't no stranger to this type of lifestyle, right? I'm going to say that in 2020, well, we in 2024 now, but I'm saying in this day and age, I do believe that TD Jakes is just going to eventually be like, hey, I am what I am. I do what I do. Mind your business and come get this word. I think it's going to go down like that. Now, unless there is something criminal or civil that can be brought against him, I don't really think he going to go nowhere. He just going to be exposed. And then he going to be like, and who going to check me, boo? The vibe I'm getting from the situation, just, y'all tell me what y'all think about that. Tell me what you think about Mr. Pearson here, what you know about him. I appreciate the people that came in the comment section and gave me a little education on this guy. That also led me to check out, more about him. And then I come across, his Eddie Long connection. It's something I even had in my archives and didn't even remember I had it because I was going to rent a story years ago, but I just didn't get it. There was so many people talking about it. I don't really like talking about what everybody else is talking about. If y'all go left, I'm going right. That's just my nature, I can't rock with the crowd. So when everybody and their mama talking about something, I'm just overwhelmed. And I'm not trying to do what y'all doing. But, instead of the same narratives and focusing on the same things, I can also come from different angles of things that I'm just seeing and looking at. Like, this is the same guy, Mr. Carlton Pearson, that first introduced Mr. T.D. Jakes to the world. Now, mind you, Carlton Pearson, if anybody doesn't know, because I didn't know who he was, but he is really the first black evangelist, mainstream, huge evangelist out there, because I didn't even know that back in the day there was such a thing like a T.D. Jakes or Eddie Long and some of these other guys. I'm just finding this out, that this guy was even that dude back then now. So he's like the prototype. He's the one who set it off. And so, of course, he paved the way for them, just like Lil' Kim paved the way, for Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and all them. And, of course, Tina Turner and Shaka Khan paved the way for her, blase, whatever. And Jesus paid the price for your sins. Don't forget that. I only knew about them white dudes, Jimmy Swaggart and all them. He didn't elaborate in this really about the Catholic Church. So that just makes me want to dig more and see if he done any talking and teaching about the Catholic Church. Oof, I'll be back.
Yeah, well, it's rough being a kid nowadays, man. You know what I mean? The teachers, the preachers, no wonder the kids can't go to school. They tired of getting... Everywhere they turn, somebody got a phone. You know what I'm saying? I just got this brother, Eddie Long. Oh, don't ooh me. I didn't make the shit up. Y'all seen it, done. And at first I had to give a brother the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, black preachers don't do the boys. That's the difference between a white church and a black church. White churches, your son. Black church, your wife. If you go into church and your wife is constantly sitting on the front row, rev them down. So I'm like, nah, Eddie Long, they just talking shit about this brother because he making money with his church. Then I seen one of the kids, remember, he got on the news last week. And the kid was like, he can't look me in my eye. And he looking dead in the camera. He can't look me in my eye. He ain't no preacher. He's a predator. I couldn't take enough showers to get his scent off of me. Nigga, I'm sitting at home. I'm like, nigga, sound like you was in love. See, God gave that motherfucking preacher the right last name, Long. He been long stroking them little boys. And here's how I know the motherfucker guilty. Because he got up in the pulpit and talked for a half hour. Not one time did he say, I didn't do it. That motherfucker said, I got 5 rocks. And I ain't thrown one yet. I said, that's the gayest shit I ever heard in my life. That nigga didn't say, I got 5 bullets, I ain't bust a cap on the motherfucker. That nigga said, I got 5 rocks. And I ain't thrown one yet. And did you see how the nigga dropped the mic? I sat at home, I said, he did it. He did it. He pulled out his pole of Moses, parted that little boy Red Sea, and let his people go. Just to keep it biblical.
Feel like David against Goliath. But I got 5 rocks, and I haven't thrown one yet.